Welcome back. I am continuing my journey here in Peru, and I wanted to jump on here and talk about Jupiter in Leo and this opposition between Pluto and Jupiter, and as well as some of the other aspects. Mars just went new phase to Uranus, and Mercury is now retrograde in Cancer. And we also have Chiron, which is in Taurus, giving us a preview. It is going to retrograde back into Aries to finish off and solidify the lessons there, but it's giving us a preview. Um, I wanted to talk about some things that I've been experiencing here in Peru. This is just kind of off the cuff. I'm traveling in this foreign country. I don't speak the language, and it can be very vulnerable sometimes. Here, you travel around on what they call a collectivo. It is a little bus, like a mini bus, and there are a bunch of them driving up and down the highway. And you just on the side of the road, you raise your arm, they pull over. You can get on and get off at pretty much any place. And as it's the main way I've been getting around here. And as I went on one, it was near the beginning of the journey here by myself. My wife is doing a retreat, but I jumped on and I kind of used my phone to follow the maps to see where I'm going because I have no idea where I'm at, right? It's a foreign country. One landscape blends into the next especially when you're first here. I've been here quite a while and now I'm pretty familiar with it. I could probably do it without the phone, although I still use it as a security blanket. But anyway, as I was getting out and jumping off, I dropped my phone and I jumped out and started walking. And I found something that was pretty cool. I wanted to take a picture of it. And I realized, oh no, my phone is gone. Oh no. And so then I had all sorts of emotions come up and panic and fear. I use my phone also to translate the Google Translate to communicate with people that don't know any English. Some people know English here, but not as many as if you're traveling in Europe or something. So I knew that the collectivos all met at the bus station, and then they would collect enough people. They sit there with the door open, and as soon as they get enough people, they'll close the door and head back the other way, and they'll go between two places. And so I started running down there to try and catch him. And I got down there, and he wasn't there. And I had a lot of parts coming forward, like self-critical parts, like you idiot, why did you do that? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? So the regretful parts and things like that. And so I sat with that for a while. I was just walking along, headed back, because at this point I was going to go further up into an upper valley called where Chinchero is. It's a ruin, the Inca ruins. But without having my phone and knowing anything about this place, I didn't dare go. And so I was just kind of walking back, and I finally said, well, maybe I'm just meant to stay here and process some stuff. This is where my Chiron and Pluto lines cross. And so I've got a lot of stuff coming up. And oddly enough, this was right when Mercury went retrograde. And so what do? I lose my communication device. Um, so I made it back to the Horse Heart Farm. This is where I'm staying. It's an Airbnb here. And I pulled out my computer and I'm getting on there and I'm trying to figure out what to do. I can't communicate with customer support because they want to send a code to my phone to verify that it's me in a foreign country trying to access my account. And I was trying to find there's four other people on our account. My wife's out of commission. She's not able to communicate, and I was able to get a hold of her mother. We have her phone on there, and we were going to send a code to her. But this Horse Heart Farm has people that come and feed the animals. There's horse, there's cats, there's a dog, and they come in the morning and at night to feed them. Volunteers do. And this woman Flo, or Shauna was here. Flo is the girl that owns the place, and Shauna was here, and I was really struggling because I have um, this fear of asserting myself in situations like this. And I finally worked up the courage, and I went and asked her. I said, "Is there a place where you can call?" Because I told her the story. I'd lost my phone. And she's like, "No, I think, they're all privately owned." And I told her, "Well, I left it on this collectivo and I'm actually tracking it because Galaxy has this website where you can track a lost phone and figure out where it's at." And I could see it moving around on the map. It was in the bus still, and it was moving around. And she's like, "Oh, well, great. Let's go get it." And I was kind of shocked because I have parts, an old story that goes on that, people don't help. And even if you have a problem, it's not something that they'll offer up. You know, and, I said, "Well, I can track it here, but I don't have internet down on the highway because I don't have a phone. And so I wouldn't be able to see it." And she's like, immediately, she's just like, "I'll use my phone. We can hotspot to your computer. We can track it and we can catch him." And because there are probably 100 of these that go by. And so we go down there and I could see him, and sure enough it came by, and it was the one. I could sense it, and I jumped on. The driver was just yelling at me to get in and shut the door, and I didn't know what to do, so I got on, and this thing was crowded. There were so many people on it. It was a busy time of day. Everybody's going home from work. This is the main mode of transportation for the locals, and a lot of tourists as well. But I went to the back and I was trying to explain to everybody that I'd lost my phone, that I needed to look under the seats and everything like that. And it was dusk and it was starting to get dark. And I was looking and I couldn't see. And one kid pulled out his phone and turned on his flashlight and started shining it for me. And this other girl says, "Hey," she knew a little English, and she said, offered her phone. And she said, "Will you call it? Maybe we can hear it." So we called it a couple of times and it didn't ring. And so I went and sit down because the driver was yelling at me to sit down in Spanish, and it was very intimidating because I didn't know what he was saying and I didn't know, what to do. I knew, that this was where it was at because I was tracking it. And I had all these stories running in my mind, these old stories of these guys they just want to steal it. They just want to take it and keep it for money. And, so I'm sitting in the back and we're about halfway to the end of the destination, which is a town or two away from where I got on. And I put my headphones in, and my headphones would Bluetooth to the phone. So I knew it was on there. I could start my book and listen to my book. And And so I really start that story. The parts come up. They just want to steal it. They're going to keep it. And I yelled, and I was like, I felt defeated. And I thought, I'm just going to get off before I get too far away. I can walk back from here. And, it is what it is. I'm going to have to get a new phone. I'll have to look at that. But the driver wouldn't stop. And so we go into Calca, which is the town where that route ends, and all the people are getting off. And one of the women that were getting off was trying to tell me something, and the only thing I could understand was phone. And if I would have known Spanish, I could have understood that she was telling me the driver has your phone. I didn't know that. And so everybody's off, and I'm frantically searching under the seats and everything. And like I was tempted to start looking up in the cab, and I thought, no, that's a bridge too far. You don't want to get yourself in trouble. You're in this foreign country. You don't know anything. I get off the bus, and he looks at me, and he starts going on and on about something in Spanish. And I thought he was telling me to give him money for the ride, because at the end of the route, everybody gets out and you all have to pay. But it turns out that he was trying to tell me he had my phone. And so I had no idea, but I was running this story in my mind that he's taking it. He doesn't know. And I'm like, no, my phone is here. My phone is here somewhere. I've got to find it. And just at that time, Shauna shows up. I'm getting kind of emotional, but she had followed me. And it was it was the only way it would have worked. She knew a little Spanish. She was able to talk to him, but she couldn't understand why he wouldn't give the phone back. She knew enough that he had the phone, but she couldn't understand why he wouldn't give it back to us. So her daughter was there. So she called her daughter over, and her daughter knows Spanish well. And she says he wants a tip. And so I pulled out, I had 30 soles, and I gave him 30 soles. And sure enough, he pulled it out and gave me my phone. And like it was this strange victory. I'm sorry I'm getting emotional, but it was this weird thing where I had all of these emotions bubbling up. Still makes me emotional. But as I was driving back with Shauna, she's just hooting and hollering, saying, "That was exciting. I can't believe we got it back. This is great." And I'm over here and I could barely talk. And I finally got out, to tell her I'm getting really emotional. And then, she met up with the woman that owns the Airbnb, and she brought me back. But as I reflected on it, I started to realize, this story comes from, I mean, yeah, of course, maybe there would be somebody that doesn't get, that wants to keep your phone or whatever. But these people were honest. The people in there, they wanted to help me. The driver was giving it back. He wanted a tip for having it. When I got back, I actually saw that they had sent me an email that said they had my phone. So I probably would have gotten it back anyway. But it was really emotional because it's such a lifeline here. And so, anyway, that's the kind of thing that happens when you travel on your Pluto Chiron line. You start to confront wounding that comes from an old place. Like I had to dare to ask somebody for help. And then I was overwhelmed because they helped me. Um, and as I sat with that, the story had a little bit of time to soften and change. And so, all right, enough of that. It was quite the incident, and I love where it turned out, and I was able to really open my heart and have a new understanding of the relationship, like trying to understand that driver more rather than just knowing that he was trying to shoo me away and keep my phone. Would have gone a long way to try and look him, in the eyes and understand what he wanted to tell me. And so communication was a thing, and it was fascinating. I lost the phone right as Mercury went retrograde, so it's stationed and turning retrograde. So let's put up this chart and look at a couple of things here. So we've got Jupiter that just went into Leo, and I think that what I want to say about Jupiter in Leo is it's in an opposition with Pluto. I mean, it's coming in. Pluto's at 4 degrees. It's at 1 degree now. So it's well on its way to this. It's in a waxing opposition. It's in a gibbous opposition. So it's going to be bringing up a lot of insecurities. And one of the concepts that I want to introduce is like they call it riding one up or riding one below. And riding one up is when you're putting yourself above other people and uh, trying to, act like you're better than other people or whatever. Now, on this channel, we talk about the inner community, and this can go on within our part systems, and these stories that we tell as we think to ourselves we're better than these other people, and it's it comes, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is it comes from this vacuum that kind of sits behind us. It's a place of lack, and that's what I think this Pluto is Pluto is often about empowerment. Where can we find empowerment within the community? It's in Aquarius. Where can we find our empowerment? And Pluto has moved over this ground before, and it's now retrograde. So our task now with Pluto is to integrate what's been exposed here. And I think that what's being exposed here and illuminated, we've got this opposition forming with Pluto and Jupiter in Leo, is where we find ourselves riding one up or riding one below. And one below is where you collapse and you feel like you're not better than other people. In fact, they're better than you. And so it's a way of engaging in the world. For some of us, like myself, it's a way of engaging in the world where you put yourself below because it's better than experiencing the rejection or the humiliation of not being accepted, and that connection being lost. Jupiter wants us to grow beyond this. Jupiter always wants us to expand and grow beyond something. And so true empowerment comes from knowing that we just have to be. Like we don't have to earn this. And so are we going to shrink back and try to retain connection by allowing these parts to run a strategy of not asserting ourselves or letting other people run over the top of us on purpose uh, so that we keep a connection? And I think that the trine that's forming between or the sextile that's forming between Jupiter and Uranus here. And Uranus or Mars just went new phase with Uranus. And I think that's actually super significant too, because this Uranus in Gemini is highlighting stories, Uranus's deep memories. And so we are talking about bringing forward things that happened to us when we were so young that we didn't have the emotional capacity to be able to deal with it. And so we had protector parts that would come up and form strategies to stop that from happening again. And so I think that Pluto is in trine with Uranus, and so that is exposing where these stories have come from. And these stories can be so subtle. They can be so present for so long that they're subtle in the way that it's like an old shoe. We just don't notice it. It's like the fish to water or whatever. The fish doesn't realize it's in water because it's always in water, right? And so, or it doesn't realize it's wet because it's always in water. But these stories, they can be so comfortable. And Mars is there in a new phase to Uranus, and it's asking us to be curious here. We're talking about Gemini and Uranus in the new phase conjunction in Gemini. Gemini or Mars and Uranus in a new phase conjunction in Gemini. Mars wants us to do something different and to be present and to stay present when these stories come up, like the story with the driver that, oh, they're just going to take it. Nobody wants to help me, and like nobody ever has helped me or whatever. Not that that's true. These parts just come up. And I really want to emphasize something that I realized while I've been here. I've been spending a lot of time alone, traveling, and just seeing some of these old ruins. And it's fascinating because when you spend that much time with yourself, you start to notice these stories come up. And I always thought that I'd literally hear something I've heard parts before talk, but oftentimes it's just a thought that occurs to me, like this thought that, oh man, the driver wants to keep my phone. But really, if I was curious, he wanted a tip. He didn't want to keep my phone. He wanted me to offer a tip. Um, I can't imagine, but the point I'm trying to make is it's so subtle. Like it's almost like the parts of us can use our mind, and why not? They're part of us, right? And so when I find myself thinking, oh man, they just did it, they just helped me because I was a guest here at their Airbnb and they want a good review. Like I had a part come up, that story was playing in my mind. And I had to kind of stop with that and think, wow, that story, this curiosity, why would they think that? Why would I think that? Why, and it comes from some distant rejection and abandonment and things that have happened to me when I was younger. And those parts are under there and trying to convince me. Now, I want to talk about the James Hillman method or philosophy here. Um, he talks about how we have this pluralistic mindset, and we don't. The task is not to solve these parts. It's not to get rid of these parts. It's not to make it go away. It's not to try and get them to stop thinking that way so that you can have peace, but if you can enter the relationship with them and understand why they feel that way, What are they trying to protect? They're trying to protect this young boy that got rejected and nobody would help. And the only way that he would get that was to either manipulate his way into it or do something to try and get, you know, I, it's just a subtle difference. And so these thoughts enter our mind. And I think that Mars in a new phase to Uranus is asking us to be curious about that and stay present, not to get lost and follow into that old comfortable story that leads us to a place of shame and collapse and sadness. And so Jupiter here in Leo, like I hope that explains how we can ride in that one down position, because that's just as big of a lack of empowerment, the Pluto side of that, as that one up position. I think we're all familiar with people that try to make themselves look better than they are, so that they can feel a sense of empowerment or a sense of, acceptance, because that's the other side of this is we could, really be presenting ourselves as, I said better before, but I think it can be more subtle than that too, trying to explain how, oh, I have this, or, this is, the way I am, this is the way I think, and this is what I do, and that puts you better. I think a lot of this comes back to Chiron in Taurus, and I want to spend some time on that. I know I'm kind of wandering around here, but Chiron in Taurus, Taurus is a survival-based strategy or survival-based archetype, and so when we Chiron in Taurus, like these deeper wounds, that you can't get rid of. What it's bringing forward, it's going to be very somatic. You're going to feel these subtle fears come up, and Chiron, like Taurus is. Jeffrey Wolf Green talks about Taurus as being that frog in the well. That's the only world it knows in the well. And the reason that Scorpio is the opposition to it is because Scorpio can confront that frog out of the well so that it can see. And that frog doesn't want to come out. Like Taurus, you can be familiar, even though it's miserable in this world you're in, it's familiar and it's comfortable. It's these old pairs of shoes, that you don't, I mean, you've been walking in them for so long you don't even notice that that's what you have. But it's it's like you don't have the opportunity to get something better, because like what you have is better than not having it. And I think that that is a little bit more about what I see in Taurus. And so we run these strategies for survival, right? It's the way that, our part systems work. And this little bit of a separation for me has started to happen, to where I can notice the thoughts coming through my mind. Oh wow, this is what I'm thinking about, and get curious. And it's like just turning to the side and noticing somebody that's been there the whole time that you've never noticed before. And so it's very subtle. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is these ways of noticing parts and stuff, it can be tricky. Anyway, I think I'm gonna try and close this up now. I'm sorry for the long story, and I'm sorry for getting emotional. It's it was something that was really deep for me, so I apologize. But we'll come back in and talk some more about these other sextiles. We've got Pluto to Neptune and Neptune to Uranus, and we talked a little bit about Uranus to Jupiter, but I think that this Barbolt's basket that's showing up, and that's what this is these sextiles, these outer planet sextiles, and then this opposition with Jupiter and Pluto. It's there's a lot of new energy here. This right now is a gibbous opposition, so it's waxing. That's going to change, and then the the sextile from Uranus to Jupiter is a crescent phase sextile. The crescent phase, once again, I picture my wife's greenhouse with the tomato starts, and she's got the fan blowing on them to try and get them to root up and to get stronger and deeper and find that value, meaning, and purpose in what we're doing. Neptune to Uranus is also crescent sextile, and that's a one after the new phase. It's a new energy, and this is also a crescent sextile between Pluto and Neptune. And so I still think that we're trying to bring some new structure to this mindset and this new way that we're understanding our world. And sometimes it's painful because we have to confront these things and see it through our emotional body. Jeffrey Wolf Green talked about how we only evolve through our emotions. And so if you can't feel it, it doesn't count. This is something that James Hillman comes to my mind too, because James Hillman talked about these as encounters with the soul. And that's where the emotion happens, because that encounter with the soul, it changes our experience. It changes us. It changes us on such a deep level that we're changed forever, and we evolve. And I think they're both saying the same thing. It's just different languages. I also want to talk more about the Pistis Sophia. It's a Gnostic text. I've been deep diving into it lately, and I'm fascinated with it. It's kind of along the lines of mythology, um, but she has this 13 repentances, and I'm just partway through it, so I'll probably talk more about this later. But it's her calling out and realizing that she has that the darkness has taken over. She followed a light that she thought was the truth, and it wasn't the truth. And so as she realizes it, she's calling out for help, and to the light that she knows is true. And it's a very subtle way of seeing the parts of ourselves in this inner psychology. It's quite fascinating. These things transcend modalities. You can see it in a whole bunch of different ways. There are many roads. That's a Trevor Hall song. So I'll leave you guys with that. Let's stop the share. We'll come back on. Sorry for the sparseness of the videos. I've been kind of involved in this travel here in Peru. And I wanted to mention something too about the diet. Eating a plant-based diet here has been actually pretty easy. There are a lot of restaurants that you can find vegan options or vegetarian. I'm not super strict on the vegan part of it, although I try to keep with it. as long as there's something a good option for it. But I've felt a lot better. I'm just shedding. I can feel the toxins shedding out of me. I used to eat a lot of processed meat, sandwich meat, and breakfast sausage, and things like that, and meat for every meal. And I don't know if I'll do this forever, but maybe I'll go back to eating meat a couple of times a week or once a week or something like that, because it's amazing how once you get the protein, carb, and that mixture right, you just feel so you're satisfied and satiated. So it doesn't, you just don't think about it. So anyway, the intention for that was to do some work while I was here. I knew this was my Pluto Chiron lines that I was coming to. Uh, I didn't know how real it would be, but there's been a lot of stuff coming up for process. And I've also visited a couple of healers while I've been here. I did a pranic healing with the teacher of the woman that owns this Airbnb. And I also did a horse or an animal healing, energy work with animals, and being able and playing with expanding your field of awareness and seeing how close you can get to an animal before they realize that you're coming, and then you stop and notice them, and then they'll give you permission to come forward again. It was quite fascinating, and it also brought forward other things, because you need to come from the heart space. And and then with the pranic healing, I had a couple of symbols come to me while I was doing that pranic healing. Um, One was a picture of me, my brother, and my mother. And the final symbol that came right at the end was I was in this grass hut, and it was dark. And I don't know if I opened the door or if somebody else opened the door, but it let all of this light in. And then right at the end, I was in the darkness again, and there was reeds hanging down in the middle, and I was just on this bed. And I'll talk some more about what I haven't, decided. I'm trying to keep that Hillman sense of this and not decide what this means. In other words, like Hillman would always say, that's when the image dies. That's when the symbol dies, because you've taken the life out of it. And so I keep kind of turning this thing and seeing what I think about it, and it changes. So, all right. Well, I think that's enough for this one. Hopefully, I haven't rambled on too much for you guys. So we will come back and we'll talk some more about these sextiles and whatever else I'm coming forward, and what I'm finding on my journey. As always, if you guys want a reading, I'll put my website up, and we can look at how this is affecting your chart, where it happens in the houses, and what it means to the soul code that's coming up in your chart. And uh, as always, hit the like and subscribe button and share these videos if you like what you see, and we'll keep bringing more and trying to expand our community, both inner and outer. All right. Thanks, you guys.